Hey, it's Rebecca, and you're listening to the Resilient by Design podcast. Today, I interview my good friend, neighbor, and super powerhouse woman, Tiffany Heimpel. Tiffany works at LinkedIn, which I think is really incredible and interesting because she is seeing firsthand how the world is changing through advertising and through social media. Today's conversation, we kind of talk about all things, but really primarily about sales and having that sales funnel. She breaks down the idea behind a conversion rate. So essentially knowing how many phone calls or how many consultations you need to have to get to a sales goal. She's really quite crafty when it comes to things like that. She loves numbers. You know that I don't like my numbers so much, so it's helpful to have someone break it down. And we talk about this idea that you can be an intrapreneur and that entrepreneurship is not for everybody. She gives also some tips. So I think I need to start acting on these tips. I mean, I'm on LinkedIn, but I don't feel as though I'm actually using LinkedIn to the full extent that I could be. And so Tiffany offered a lot of great advice on specifically how to post, the types of posts that work on LinkedIn. And let's face it, she's an insider, so she knows. All right, guys, I hope you enjoy this episode. All right. I'm Rebecca Hay, and I've built a successful interior design business by trial and error, podcasts, online courses, and so many freaking books. Over the last decade, I've grown from an insecure student to having false starts to careers, and now I'm finally in the place where I want to be. Throughout my journey, it's been pretty obvious that I'm passionate about business and helping other entrepreneurs do the same. Each week, I'll share tangible takeaways from my own experience and the experiences of other badass women to help you build your confidence and change your business. Okie dokie, I'm here with Tiffany Heimpel. I don't know why I've started singing people's names.
Why not? It's so fun.
I'm just excited.
Yeah.
So Tiffany is my friend, my neighbor, and a kick-ass businesswoman. And I'm really excited to have you on the podcast. Thanks for coming, girl.
Well, I'm very excited to be here. Thank you for asking me. I guess I'll start with a number, which is 27%. Do you know what 27%
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, fair enough.
I do love that you just jump right in. This is what I love about Tiffany before you start talking. I'm so sorry. I have to interject because Tiffany is she's like the opposite of me when it comes to things with business. Like you just go all in and you go and you don't ask permission and you're the definition of lean in.
Aw, thanks. So fun. I'll take it.
Okay, go on. 27%. Tell me.
Okay, so 27% is the number of people, the percentage of people who actually work within their field of study, who actually work within their degree, 27%, which means that there is 73% of people that do not work in any way, in any factor, with anything that they studied in school. And the reason I think that's important, Rebecca, is because I am one of that 73%. I have a degree in costume design. I have never taken a business class in my life. And yet I am a sales manager at LinkedIn and I work in the marketing team and I have been in business and sales for coming up on 17 years. And I have never taken a formal business class in my whole life.
I love that you just breezed over the fact that you went to school for costume design.
I did.
I think a lot of the designers will appreciate that.
There you go.
A lot of designers, I will tell you, are doing design as a second career.
Yeah.
So that really resonates.
That's good. I'm glad. Well, it's funny because I found that early in my career, I always tried to hide that. I just tried to hide it because I didn't have a degree in business and I was in business and I felt like a fraud because I wasn't supposed to be here. I didn't go to school for this. And as I've gotten older and more confident and more successful and had found more success, I have realized that actually having a degree in design and a degree into costume design specifically is what has made me so successful because I don't think the same way. I don't operate the same way. I haven't read all the same books. I haven't gone to all the same places. And so because of that, you approach things differently. And I think that is the most important thing in business, especially business today, as we look at where we are in COVID and changing landscape, the most important things is being able to look at a holistic picture and figure out where you're going to pivot quickly, how, and you can't just look at data. You can't just look at anything one-dimensionally anymore. You have to take a full 360 into account, including data, personal life, political life, geopolitical, socioeconomic, and go, great, now what am I going to do? And so I think that's really important.
So here's the burning question everyone is thinking right now. You work at LinkedIn.
I do.
And you studied costume design. Can you fill in the gaps? How does that happen?
Of course. So a lot of gumption is how it happens. I came out of school. I said, I don't want to be in costume design anymore. So I hightailed it out for a while, did the whole traveling thing, came back, realized I had to get a job, ended up in product placement for film and television, which was basically repping brands in film and TV series, and realized that was marketing, figured out I liked that, asked around, said, does anyone know anyone who works in marketing? My aunt knew someone who ran an ad agency in Toronto. I talked to him. I said, great, do you have a job? So I'm 22. I'm like, awesome. Do you have a job? He's like, yes, I do. You have to interview for it. I'm going to get it. He's like, okay. And so I have a lot of confidence. And so
anyone who's listening is like, how do you just go and say, do you have a job? Like, I would never, ever in a million years think to do that. I'd be like waiting and like, well, if there's ever, if you know someone, you were just like, go for it. I love that.
Yep. You have a job. So anyway, they gave me a job. And then from there, I ended up in another job in advertising. And then a job came up in sales at Universal Studios in Toronto. And I had always wanted to work in sales in film because I do have a degree in costume design. I do like theater and film. And so I thought, oh, great, I'll go into sales in that. And that's where I was supposed to go for a year. I ended up staying 7. And that's where I really learned how to be a salesperson and how to understand all the things like pipeline and close rate and pitching and the whole sales process, the whole sales negotiation and conversation and prospecting and all of that. And then from there, I started a blog and I blogged for a long time and then shut it down because I needed to pivot.
And you were on TV. The designers like to hear this. Weren't you on like the Marilyn Dennis show or something?
Yes, for a long time. I did the Marilyn shows on Huffington Post. I was on Global. I was an influencer before influencers were a thing. And then I had my kids and I didn't want to do that anymore. So I just shut her down. But I think that's really important. Like to anyone that's listening, it's just figuring out, like I was saying, like at that point, I was working in a field in sales in film, which was great, but it was slightly one-dimensional. And I knew that digital was getting bigger and I knew that I had to get that experience and I didn't have that experience. So sure, I could have gone and taken a course or I could have launched my own blog and just figured it out. And I did. And it worked out great. And so, yeah, that was really like the pivot or the TSN turning point, if you will, that shifted me in a whole different career path. And from there, I went to, I was a blogger. And then that's when I had the kids. And then that's when I ended up getting approached about starting an influencer marketing agency in Canada. There was already a US business that existed. I was asked to start the Canadian office and I did that. And we grew revenue to about, 30% of the US market. And I did that for 4 years. It was great. Loved it. And then you get to a point where you go, okay, I need to do something new. And then I started to put out the feelers. A friend of mine approached me about this job at LinkedIn. I said, well, okay. And I interviewed and now I'm at LinkedIn. So that's how that path works. From costume design to LinkedIn, right?
I love that. I love that your path is so varied and windy. And because, my path was windy to get where I am and so many entrepreneurs. And we'll talk about this in a minute because like when you and I became friends, you introduced me to this new term that I'd never heard of before, which was intrapreneur. So I want to talk about that in a second. But you've had so many different positions in different industries. And I think that that's important for a creative entrepreneur to hear because there really isn't one direct path. And if there's students listening to this and they're maybe design students or they're doing something completely different and they want to get into design, like do not fret. What decision you make for your next step does not have to define where you will end up. Like Tiffany is the perfect example. Like when I met you, you've been in 2 different industries since I've known you, and I've only known you for a handful of years, right? We've been neighbors.
What's shocking is we've known each other for like 7 years, I think.
7 years. It feels longer. Like I feel
right?
Like
it's longer or shorter. I know.
Yeah.
Well, I guess 6, right? Our kids are 6, so 6. Yeah. No, I totally agree with you. That's the advice I give anyone that's coming out of school who's like, oh, what should I do? I'm like, just do something. Like, just do something. Just take a job. Because if you take a job, you will figure out very quickly what parts of that job you like and what parts of that job you don't like. I didn't realize how methodical and organized and how much I liked math and process. I didn't realize any of that until I got into sales and started working with spreadsheets and started working more with numbers. Like, I liked math in school, but I certainly didn't do great at it. So I realized I didn't like algebra and I didn't like calculus, but I really like basic math. I enjoy understanding how things functionally go from here to here based on a formula. So, and that's really what sales is. Sales is a formula, right? Yeah. If I make this many calls, I'm going to get this many meetings. If I have this many meetings, I'm going to have this many consultations. If I have this many consultations, I'm going to close this much business. So if I have to close this much business, then I have to back it up and have this many consultations, this many meetings, and make this many calls or send this many emails. And that's all sales is. And sales is purely a formula, right?
And so it's so funny. I remember you and I had this conversation. It was probably I don't know, wasn't that long ago? Maybe it was 5 years ago. I don't know.
It was when the little one. So it would have been 3 years ago.
Yeah, when we were on our mat leaves together.
Yeah, exactly.
Quote unquote, our 2-week mat leave.
Yeah.
And I remember you saying, well, Rebecca, what's your conversion rate? I'm like, well, what is that? I'm like, what are you talking about? Anyways, I remember you saying that you knew if you sent so many emails in a day that you would get so many sales. And I was like, how do you know that? You don't know when you send an email to someone if they're going to hire you or if they're going to give you their money. I was like, that's ludicrous. I do not understand. And I remember you taking my laptop because I remember you telling me about it and how to do this calculation. And I still didn't get it because math is definitely one of my least favorite subjects.
Fair.
And still to this day, that has not changed since school, unfortunately. And you typed it in on my laptop and I had this little Excel calculator for conversion. So can you just break that down for everyone who's listening, who is like, what the heck are you talking about? How can designers determine how many consultations they need to get a certain amount of sales?
Okay, I can try to break this down. It is very hard to break down audibly and not visually, depending on how people learn, obviously. So what you do is you take your final. So what is the number you want to be at? I want to do 100K in sales a month. I don't know. Yeah, okay, great. And then from there, you figure out, great, where did that 100K? And you look back, let's say over 3 months. And where does 100K come from? Does it come from one client? Does it come from 2, 3, 4? Maybe it's 4 at 25K each. Great. Okay. Well, how many meetings did you have to have with each of those clients in order to get them to the point where they were ready to spend? I had to have a consultation. I had to have a follow-up. I had to have this. Okay. I had to have 4 touch points, let's say, with each of them. And I'm sure think of it like a funnel, right? So as you get to the bottom, the funnel gets smaller, but at the top, the funnel is very wide. And so as you're going back up there, you go, okay, I need to do 100. Well, then I need 4 clients spending 25. In order to get 4 clients, I have to speak to, 10 people because I have a 40% conversion rate. So what that would mean is out of 10 people I speak to, 4 of them are going to do business with me. Now, 40%, I don't know what it is in the design world. I don't know what a good conversion rate is. It's different for everyone. But the conversion rate is ultimately how many people do I have to talk to in order to get business? How many meetings do I have to have? So to give you an idea, there's so many ranges. I've been in businesses where your conversion rate is 20%. I've been in businesses where your conversion rate is 80%. So obviously at 80%, you don't have to talk to as many people, but maybe the sales cycle is a lot longer because the deal is a lot bigger. Maybe when it's 30%, you have to talk to a lot of people because you have to get so many small deals. It depends on how it works, but that's ultimately what a conversion ratio is. It is how many people do I have to talk to get how many deals? And once you know that, then you make that M number bigger. So you say, okay, I want to do 100, 200, 300, 400. And then you use that same math to figure out, and I can already see I'm losing you, Rebecca. You see that? You do that.
It's okay. I've done this, but most people are probably like, what?
So you do that same math to figure out, like, if I have to get to, again, 4 clients, I need to meet, and maybe it's 20% is your close ratio. Well, if that's the case, you have to have more meetings. And it just keeps going backwards. And so ideally, what you're trying to do in any sales process is figure out what your conversion rate is at each step. So if I send a bunch of cold emails out, let's say I send 1,000, maybe I only have a 10% open rate. So only 100 people open them. Of that 100 people, maybe only 20% get back to me. So I only have a 20% on my open rate. Well, then if those 20, maybe only 2 decide to do business with me. So I have a 10% close ratio to business. But that means to get those 2 people, I have to get 20 people to respond, I have to get 100 people to open, and I have to get 1,000 people I have to send. So, and that's really what you're trying to figure out with any sort of sales process. And once you nail that down, it's very easy to do sales.
So let me break that down for designers, because I think what's interesting is when you look at it, the 2 things. First of all, when I first did this, I looked at my previous year, because it's so hard to know what to expect if you don't know what you've done before. Totally. So I looked at the previous year, and what I did is how many consultations did I have? And then how many of those turned into projects?
Perfect.
And I looked and I said, okay, about 50% of the consultations I had, so for every other consultation, it turned into a project, which meant once I got them to a consultation, I had a 50% close rate.
Perfect.
Right?
Exactly.
So then I was like, okay, so how many consultations do I need a month if I want to have 6 projects a year at $100,000?
Right.
And then I came to a conclusion, this was a few years ago, that I wanted to have, I think it was like 2 to 4 consultations a month, because if I could turn 2 of those into a project, then it would get to my goal.
Perfect.
Then what I started to look at more recently is now I have these discovery calls. So I have a discovery call. So if you're a designer and you're having a discovery call, I would say how many do those discovery calls convert to a consultation?
Right.
Then how many of those consultations convert to a project? And like back it up. What do you need to do to get a discovery call?
Right.
One of the things that I started doing was sending out my pricing structure before the call. So now when I have a discovery call, my close rate to a consultation is much higher because I've pre-qualified them. And now once I have a consultation, it's more likely that they're ready to go. So my close rate has gone up. So I've done little things to ensure that that close rate is increasing.
Exactly. But you did that right? You identified what your sales process is. So like you said, my sales process is discovery call to consultation to project. Great, cool, perfect. And then once you even know what your process is, now you can start to tweak those key pivot points. You can call it a pivot point. You can call it a change point. You can call it a turn, a curve, whatever you want to call it. But it's basically the point where someone tips. And so, like you said, discovery to consultation. Great. Consultation to project. Awesome. And that's really what you're trying to then tweak all the time.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know the percentages off the top of my head the way you probably do for things. I just know that it's gotten better, but it's something I should definitely do.
Mm-hmm. But it's fun because I think it's fun. Once you know the percentage.
I know you do.
Right? Once you know the percentages, that's where I get really excited because that's where you can forecast out dollars. You're like, oh, well, if I want to make $1 million and I want to make $2 million. Okay, so my percentage is this. So I need to get this. Okay, and like then it's just math. You're like, all right, well, how many consultations do I have to get $1 million? I have to get, 100. Okay, great. How am I going to get 100 consultations? Well, I have to get this. Okay, so I have to send 5,000 inquiries, whether that's email, direct message, Facebook, maybe I have to do a live event, whatever. But I know that if I get to this number, if I get to 100 consultations, I can get to $1 million. And like, to me, that's the most fun part about sales is being able to control your financial destiny and be able to look and say, I want to make this much money. And that's why I love sales, right? I want to make this much money. So better believe I'm going to back it out and figure out how I'm going to make that much money. And that's really fun.
Yeah. And you know what I love about that too is it becomes a motivator. So it's like, shoot, January and February, I only had one consultation a month. Like I need to step up my marketing game.
Right.
What do I need to do to get more consultations? Because I know I need to have one a week. So now let's get hustling to make it happen, as opposed to just loosey-goosey waiting for the work to come to you and wondering why you haven't made $1 million yet.
Right. Well, I think that's so funny. Like I find that, I mean, and especially in the economic space we're in right now, where everything is up in the air and everything's up in flux, and so many people have been impacted in so many ways. There is this, I'm not saying right now, but I'm saying in general, there has always been like this pervasive latency. Like you said, like, I want to make, if I could only make $1 million. One day, if I could make $1 million. Oh, and it's like, you can't.
I had $1 million.
Right? Exactly.
If I had $1 million. Okay, there we go.
Very good singing.
By the way, Tiffany and I have a mutual love of musicals.
It's true.
Sidebar. Okay, go back.
Oh, good. Speaking of which, and I know Hamilton's old, but like it has fallen back into my playlist somehow. And God, that show is so good.
Can you believe I've never seen Hamilton?
No, I can't actually. Do you have Disney Plus?
So funny.
I'm sure you have Disney Plus. It's
I
on
do.
Disney Plus. Go watch it.
But I feel like I need to see it on stage.
You don't. I saw it on stage. I saw it on Disney Plus. It was so much better on Disney Plus. I'm kidding.
Oh my God, yes, that is good weekend movie. Actually, I just watched a show. This is a total sidebar. When I was feeling down, I took a personal day recently, and I watched Sweet Magnolias on Netflix.
Oh, good.
It starts off and you're like, oh, this is so cheesy. It's not going to be good, but I got really into it. And they talk about Hamilton in it. Hamilton is everywhere right now. I guess I have to watch it.
It's been everywhere for a while, but like the music is just, it really is phenomenal. I mean, it's why it's been like top of like the New York charts for ages and like Billboard. Yeah. I mean, but some of the songs are just so good. Anyways, sidebar. I digress.
Yeah. Okay. Anyhow, I don't even remember what we were talking about.
I don't know. We were talking about making $1 million. That's what we were talking about. So anybody can make $1 million. Like people listening probably are like, oh, well, you can say that. Or like, you can say that, Rebecca, because look, you've got 10,000 followers on Instagram and you're a successful designer. But like, you weren't always that way, right? Like I have a freaking degree in costume design. Like we could have all ended up in very different places. Just go get what you want. Like, just go get it. Just go ask for it. Worst thing people can say is no.
I know. I love that. Right? It's so easy to say that, but it's so true.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is why I feel like you and I have connected too, because first of all, I never really knew I loved business.
Right.
I thought I was like this artist.
Yeah.
And the more we started talking about business and as an entrepreneur, you could still really relate and connect with so much I was talking about. And that's where this term intrapreneur. Can you explain that term?
So yes, an intrapreneur is someone who doesn't necessarily want to strike it out on their own. So they wouldn't be a full-fledged entrepreneur in that they want to make their own business and own their own business and run everything.
All the responsibilities.
Exactly. All the responsibilities, all that, much like you do. And an intrapreneur is someone who likes to seek out those roles in organizations. So I am a intrapreneur. Rebecca is an entrepreneur. Yes.
No, I love that because I think sometimes people think that they don't have that flexibility or they can't be passionate and grow unless they go out on their own. And I know there's people listening now who probably are not on their own and they're working in an organization and they're wondering like, how can I do these things? Like it's possible. You don't have to quit your day job and start a business to be entrepreneurial.
No, not at all. I think part of it is once I realized that, because people would always ask me, like, why aren't you an entrepreneur? Why aren't you doing your own thing? You're so creative. You love business. Why don't you? Because I don't want to. I genuinely don't want to. I do not enjoy the risk involved. I don't enjoy the stress involved. I have no desire to do any of that stuff. And I know that. And I know that from trying it. So when I launched my blog and I had a separate business for a hot minute, I hated it. Like I enjoyed the writing content part, but like I didn't like the business part of that. And so then when I was approached by the US company to open the Canadian office, it was like, hey, this is your own business, right? Like it was my own thing. I got to open the office. I got to open the payroll, taxes, everything, build the market strategy, build the go-to-market strategy, hire all the people, get all the clients. But I didn't have the overhead risk of additionally building the brand, additionally funding payroll, additionally like all of these other extra layers. but I still got to operate completely autonomously, basically as a country manager. So that was really fun. And then I think for people listening to your point, who are not at the country manager stage, there's ways to find that in your organization. And so you just look for, like, even still, I'm constantly looking for projects where I get to run my own little ship. And so I look and I'm like, hey, why don't we have this? Oh, well, we don't have that. Well, I'm going to go do this. Okay, go do it. Great. And then I assemble my team. I get my people. I get my resources. I'm like, cool, I'm going to run this little project on my own. And I really enjoy that because I still get to do my own thing without all the stress of all the other parts of business that you guys do that, again, I think is amazing. Like, we need entrepreneurs. I could never be one.
I know. I think that entrepreneurship has become rather trendy, actually.
Yeah, totally.
And yet we forget that it's actually not for everyone.
No way,
it is not easy. Like, anyone listening who's running their own business and is struggling knows that you have to wear a million hats until you can get to a point where you can hire someone to wear one of those hats or multiple hats. It is a lot of freaking work.
So much work. There's so much
much work. But now you're at LinkedIn, which I'm sure everybody seeing that in your job title is going to be like, what? Tell us about LinkedIn. How, because it's so interesting that you're working there too, of all places right now in this world, because everyone under the moon that I listen to who is like a business coach or a marketing entrepreneur talk about how LinkedIn is like this untapped resource for a lot of people still.
Yeah.
It's a great place to network and market your business.
Totally.
And advertise and just be present on. And I think I've had this conversation before on the podcast briefly about how people think LinkedIn is just for those working in big organizations and that it won't be useful for a designer to be on LinkedIn. But I think actually that could be an opportunity. I'm interested to hear, like, what do you think? Like, how do you see LinkedIn as it's transforming? I mean, what is your role there? But how can designers kind of, use the platform?
I mean, I think at the end of the day, the nice thing is LinkedIn was just ranked 4 years running the most trusted social media platform. So social media is here to stay. We're all aware of that. What we have seen, though, is a variety of scandals, whether they be from data breaches, trust issues, political and social contextual issues on various platforms that we haven't seen at LinkedIn. And the reason we haven't seen it is because we take member privacy. It's the most important thing. So when you look at that, that's imperative. So what's working at LinkedIn? Like, honestly, it's awesome. It's great. I love it. I love the people. I work on the sales marketing team there. So I actually work with the team that sells marketing on LinkedIn to companies. So I can actually tell you if I'm working on LinkedIn. I can't tell you. I can't advise on this. This is my job. So it is untapped, certainly. Like, it is underutilized relative to other platforms. I think the biggest thing is putting out content. So much like you already do, putting out content on posts, writing articles. You don't have to start your own blog. Like, honestly, just start writing articles on LinkedIn. Start driving awareness and eyeballs there. I think the biggest thing is recognize the people in the place. So on LinkedIn, what's really interesting, and especially in this COVID landscape as we've shifted, and again, these are just my personal opinions, right? These are not like endorsed by LinkedIn, but what you've seen is this shift, right? We've seen like work and life have blended. So whereas before you would see LinkedIn as a platform whereby we would mostly talk about work. You wouldn't necessarily talk about as much work-life balance. You wouldn't necessarily talk about as much about your kids. But now those two things, they are all intersected, your health and wellness and your family and your life. And we're working from home and we're living at work and everything is one and the same. And so people that are doing really well on LinkedIn in a design capacity or like in a creative capacity are people that are recognizing that. So people, if you want to come on LinkedIn and you're a designer, talk about how you can design your space to work from home. Talk about design hacks that you can do to mitigate sound from your kids on a conference call. Talk about ways you can repurpose a closet. Show a photo of how you can sit outside, but make sure that the sun is right so that you don't look like you're from the witness protection program. You know what I mean? Like, just make sure you know your audience. And I think the audience on LinkedIn are business people primarily. Obviously, the nice thing is most of them are affluent. So the people that you would be talking to are likely employed. And because of that, you have a really good audience as far as who you want to talk to for design, for redoing your space. I mean, I know, Rebecca, you have told me even personally, you've seen quite a boom in people wanting to redo their homes, like redo their office space, redo the kitchen that they have to look at. I mean, I know even you're like, I'm in my house so much more, I need to redo my house. And everyone's in that boat. Like any contractor you talk to, any design person I talk to, they are jammed because, yeah, we're stuck at home. We can't spend money on vacations. We can't spend money elsewhere. So we might as well improve our space. And so I think as far as LinkedIn is concerned, do all the things you would normally do to promote your brand. Just make sure you're keeping in mind, like, this is a business audience. So I wouldn't focus on, things like, hey, I just want to, have some cocktails and entertain outside. It's like ending your workday, looking to do a socially distanced team hangout in your backyard. Here's a way to decorate, right? Like, just make sure the content is relevant for that audience. Obviously, use your hashtags appropriately, no more than 3 per post.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So no more than 3 per post is a best practice. And keep your content shorter if you're just doing a post. Like, no, you don't have to do too long. And then again, like if you can write articles. Videos do really well. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of fun stuff.
Yeah, we talked about that in my momentum course about like marketing specifically and LinkedIn and what to do. And I've seen a few designers quite successfully posting little posts about their travels that inspired them. Like it wasn't even related to business, but I think for somebody like you say, who's affluent, who has, a high profile job, they're on LinkedIn anyways for work. This beautiful space pops up into their feed with something that's catchy that applies to them. It's kind of a nice break.
Totally. Well, and I think you make a good point. What's interesting is I think a lot of people think what you said, like, oh, well, people are on LinkedIn for work. That is not true at all. I mean, it is true, but a lot of people just consume their content on LinkedIn now because it is curated as far as your network is concerned. People pop on there just to see news-wise what's going on in their world. So because I work at LinkedIn, I will get a lot of information fed to me about the tech industry, about women in business, about obviously, the Canadian economy. And scrolling through that in the morning, it's instead of going to the Globe and Mail app, but I open LinkedIn first to literally go through and get a very high level of like, what's going on? Has anything crazy hit? Oh my gosh, Oracle bought TikTok, not Microsoft. Crazy. Okay. And then I'll go seek that out somewhere else to find out more information. It's a news source for a lot of people. So to your point, if you can get in that feed and provide content that is relevant and makes sense. So, hey, again, like I'm working from home. How do you take a break? Where do you go? How do you schedule the space? How do you cut your office in 2 so that 2 people can work in it? Like, there's so many things that people are still grappling with. And it looks like we're going to be work from home for quite a long time. We're not going back to business as usual anytime soon. So when you look at that, it's like people who are maybe even putting it off until the end of summer going like, oh, well, we'll see what happens. Now taking into account, obviously, you've got even virtual school, like all those things to me are huge turning points for design and how people need to change and use their space differently.
Totally. And I want to go back to what you said before about these people who are on LinkedIn, who are these affluent people who are looking to improve their house. I want to take that to the next level and say, a lot of the times professionals who are working in bigger industries, they get paid out in bonuses. Right? So certain people who are in sales like yourself will get like a bonus at a certain time of the year, depends on the company, like even lawyers, people who are in a professional field. And so what would happen historically is they would get a bonus and then they would decide, what are we going to do with, hi, honey, mommy's just in a call.
Yeah.
And they would decide where they were going to spend it. And quite often, and this is something that I saw with my clients, it was kind of this idea, do I go on a family trip?
Right.
Or do I spend money on improving my house? Well, guess what, people? There's no family trips happening.
No.
So what are they going to do with all their money? They may as well invest in their home.
There you go. They may as well invest in with you guys. Totally.
Totally.
Yeah.
And speaking to that point, like speaking to, not, hey, what are you going to do with all that extra money? But, you can't go away. And because the people who are on LinkedIn, like you say, and I've never really thought of it this way, they are typically more affluent. They are someone who is making a good income. And so they might have a little bit of disposable income to spend on, a little to a lot, to spend on improvements versus going on a trip.
Totally. No, and I think that's a really good point. And actually, even to that point further, I think what you need to think about, like you said, Rebecca, is your timing of the marketing. So, for example, when you have someone that is, like you said, people get paid out in bonuses, right? So, okay, well, if it's, first of all, you look at like the easy ones. So it's people work on a calendar year. So January to December. Well, if that's the case, their bonus is probably paid out in like late Jan, early Feb, right? Well, then you have people that are paid quarterly. Well, if that's the case and the quarters are Jan to March, April to June, right? Then the bonus is paid out normally the month after the quarter ends. Well, if people are bonused on the half, the month after the half ends is when you would get the bonus. So it's like starting to think about that too, I think, in your marketing and looking at that is like, okay, well, if I know that, for example, all the banks, right? Like all the banks, their fiscal year ends October 31st. So everyone who works at a bank, year ends October 31st. Well, it's a very public thing. Go check out a statement.
Yeah, no, I believe you. I just never really paid attention to that.
There you go. But you think, so all those people, and some of those places have, like, I think I recall at last count, TD employs like 80,000 people. All those bonuses are going to be paid out in November, December. So, okay, sure, people are going to spend on Christmas, but what else are they going to spend on? Like you're saying.
Yeah. Planning for big ticket items. Mm-hmm. Usually people reserve their bonus for the bigger ticket items, whether it's a down payment on a house or a major renovation or moving or whatever.
Right. And I think even further to that, now is where you start to talk about, and to me, this is also like, it's funny, we're talking about marketing, but to me, this is all sales, right? Is understanding the timing of the cycle. And so, okay, so the bonus, let's take, for example, the banks, the big five banks, right? So their fiscal year is over October 31st. Well, it's not like come November 1, they're going to be like, what should I do with this money? Like that doesn't happen, right? So knowing that, you should start seeding that idea of renovation with your bonus like 3 months prior, right? Mm-hmm. So if that money's hitting, let's say late November, December, October, August, July, you should be talking about like good year or bonuses coming up. Have you thought about, right? To start getting people to think about it. And the traditional sales methodology says that you have to see and encounter something 7 times before you take an action. So I need to see your post. I need to see it on LinkedIn. I need to see it on Facebook. Maybe I see it on TV. Maybe I see it on a billboard. Maybe I hear it on the radio before I finally on the 7th time go, what is this? And I actually click it. So I'll take an example. There is this brand, and I think I told you this, of like yoga wear called Noli Yoga. I think I've sent you this link. Yeah. So, and it's out of California. And when COVID hit, like I'm fairly active. I do a lot of yoga. And so I normally get fed this stuff anyway. But okay, I get fed. I'm like, wow, that stuff's really pretty. Don't think about it. I get fed it again. Finally, I do recall it was probably like at least the 7th to 10th time. I fully clicked and I spent like $400 on like random yoga gear out of Southern California. And I'm like, well, good job, guys. Like you just kept coming at me and I did buy it, right?
Yeah. They know their target demo.
Totally. So whether it's an algorithm or not, like, great job, you win, I'm signed up.
It's so true. Like that's why, with marketing, I always say you want to be everywhere as much as you can. And it's not that you need to be active on every platform. It can be overwhelming when you're a solo, but you certainly need to remember that, even like if you are trying to sell your consultations, I say this to designers all the time, you need to talk about that. It's not enough to just post pretty pictures on Instagram. Like you need to every once in a while say, hey, we offer consultations. Here's how much it costs.
Yeah.
You need to put it out there because you need to remind people. I mean, I still tell this story of when a couple of years ago I was doing an Instagram story and I put it out there and I was like, hey, we're looking for new projects for this fall. Send us an email if you're interested. We'd love to meet with you and learn about your project. And this one girl instantly DM'd me and she had said, oh my gosh, I've been meaning to do this for so long. And then I saw your Instagram story and I was like, okay, the timing is perfect. Rebecca needs projects. We need Rebecca. And they hired me for a major renovation because of me just putting it out there and being in their face and saying, and also talking about selling. I think designers really struggle, or creative entrepreneurs too, struggle with putting themselves out there. We think that the work will speak for itself.
Yeah, no.
And then designers are wondering why they're not busy.
Yeah. No, I think what's really interesting, and I think you hit on this point, and I don't know if your audience is primarily female, but like this is something that I would say females more than males unfortunately struggle with, is the idea that I can't ask for what I want and it will be unfeminine or it'll be too pushy or da-da-da. I don't have that, but a lot of people do.
You don't have that problem.
No,
You're right.
a lot of people do. But I think what's really interesting is I found it hard, and I still do. Like, I don't ever think of what I do as selling. I actually don't. And I don't think of it that way because I genuinely believe what I do helps people. And so I know that right now I work with the LinkedIn marketing team. I know if I can help client X market better on LinkedIn, it will help their business. It will help their business grow, which will invariably help other people get jobs and get hired. And so I am helping you figure this out. I am helping you achieve your goal. Now, I've also never taken a job where I didn't agree with what I was selling. Like I couldn't just sell like staplers because I just couldn't do that, right?
But I think help people too.
They do help people, I guess. But again, I would have to find that thing. Totally. But I think for designers, that's what's so interesting, right? Is like, you guys are genuinely helping people. This is something people need, right? Like they need more space. They need more, like you've said, they need more headspace, more clarity. They need more organization. They need something to help their life work better. If you can help them, if you can fix their space, whether it be aesthetically, whether it be functionally, you will help them save time, which will invariably make them a calmer person and have a better life. That's not selling, that's helping. Like, right?
Yeah, we need to talk more about how we help to make your life better, and as opposed to, and I see this mistake happen a lot where people talk about themselves too much, and they're not talking about their client and how they're helping their client, because it's really not about me. It's not about how good my team is. It's not about how skilled I am. It's not about how I can make beautiful drapes with little polka dots or whatever. It's how does it work? How do I make your life better? And I think if we start talking about that, it comes from a genuine place, like you say, that it's not salesy. We don't feel like you need to be salesy. It's just like, hey, let me help you make your entry more functional. Right? I get it. The shoes are everywhere. Let's find a solution so you're not tripping over your husband's shoes. From experience every morning when you want to leave the house.
There you go. Exactly. So, and I think it's really interesting. The flip side I would say to that is, and I don't know if everyone on the call or you do, like, has a referral in place too. Like you should all have a referral piece of your business in place because people care about referrals, right? Like they care about where you came from. And so whether it's you get a $100, whether it's you get a free something, right? But like people like to refer to. So personal story is I was working with this banker. I really liked him. I've been working with this guy for like 2 years, but he's not a financial planner. I manage all my own money, so I don't really need one. So I'm talking to him, okay, and he's like, you know what, Tiff, like you're getting to a point. You might want to talk to somebody. I'm like, no, I'm good. And so he finally goes like, well, you should meet this person. So he introduces me to this person. Okay, fine. And I talk to him. It takes me like a few months back and forth. But to your point, I've done this. I'm like, okay, no, I'm not interested. All right. And I was just like, I don't feel like it. Nope. Nope. And then one day I'm talking to him. I'm like, listen, I just really like this other guy. I know he's not a financial planner, but he answers my questions. And frankly, I feel like I can do pretty well by myself. So I don't need you. And he goes, okay, well, I'm not here to sell you. He's like, you do know that we went to school together though. Like we were roommates in college. I'm like, no, I didn't know that. He's like, I'm like, oh, well, now I'll meet with you. And now I'm going to do business with the guy because like, no joke, like
relationship.
Genuinely, I know that like, oh, you're not just referring, like there's a personal something here. And I don't know if that goes back to like the female side of like trust. And when it comes to money management, I'm like, nope, I don't trust you with my money. But I'm like, oh, I trust that. Oh, you guys know. Oh, you really know each other. Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, okay, I'll give you my money. All right. Fine.
Yeah. So person A is a good person and you're close friends with person B. So person B by association must also be good.
Yeah, by affinity bias, you are then good.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, another form of bias, but it's true. But it's true, right? Like it's how we make decisions. So, and again, I realize we've sort of been all over the map, but all of these parts are parts of sales, right? All of these parts are really important parts of like the human psychology of how people sell and how people think, the human psychology of when people get money, when they will think about making major purchases, the definitive sales cycle of like piece by piece by piece of percentage points of where you can tweak to make sure that you're increasing your output. All of those things are part of the larger sales engine and helping people. Like that should be the end goal always, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm, totally. And referrals are one of the biggest sources of most designers' business. It really is. And you have to make sure, like you say, like take care of those people who refer and say thank you. And I've done like I've sent like $100 Starbucks gift cards or sent,
wine,
something
like I don't know, anything, right? Like literally
it doesn't even have to be a big monetary value.
No.
It's the action that now that I'm saying this, I'm like, oh shoot, I still on my to-do list. I have to send that realtor a thank you for referring me. Because then, that bit of gratitude, because they could have referred their friend to anyone. They could have referred their client to anyone and they chose you. So you need to say thank you. And then next time they might say, you know what, if it's between Tiffany and Susie, well, Tiffany gave me that really great bottle of red wine. I loved it. Yeah, let's refer her to Tiffany. Like it's silly, but it's the tiny little things that will make a difference.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And to your point, like it does not have to be expensive. I find handwritten thank you notes are like, I write handwritten thank you notes all the time. And so digitally it's harder because how do I get people's address? And so I took a course and they were saying like one of the things you can ask for is what's your best address? So you don't have to say like, where can I get your address?
Where do you live?
Like, where do you live? Right. But you're like, oh, can I get your best mailing address? And I was like, oh, that's good. So now I try to ask for that. Can I get your best mailing address? Which is good.
I like that. And there's even things I know here in Toronto, we have something called Giftagram.
Oh, Giftagram
app. Which is amazing because you don't have to know someone's address, just their email or their phone number. You pick the gift, you pay a bit of a premium, but you pick the gift and then that individual is messaged and then they enter whatever address they want the gift delivered to and you as the sender never see it. So there's privacy.
Right.
It's a really great way to sort of circumvent that too.
100%. Yeah, we use that a ton actually. That's a great app.
Yeah. This is not an ad, by the way.
No, exactly. This is not endorsed by Giftagram.
My podcast is yet to be sponsored.
Yes. Soon, I'm sure.
Soon. Yeah. Okay, before we wrap up, do you have any other parting words of wisdom to share with my audience? It could be about life. It doesn't really have to be about sales. Like I have so many little nuggets of wisdom you've
I don't know. I feel like I'm always sending you random quotes. I'm like, this is the one, this is it. No, I think the biggest thing is like, and I live and die by it. I normally have it on my desk, but it's actually still at my office, which I haven't been into. But is so what? So what? Like, and I say that, and I think about that all the time in every aspect of my life. So when I go to make a sale, it's so what? Like, why should they buy from me? So what? Like, why? Why am I the person? Why am I the person instead of this other person? Right? So what? What do I bring that's unique, that's valuable, that's different? So what? Why should you work with me? And if I can't answer that question, frankly, I shouldn't be selling to you. Right? Like, you shouldn't buy from me because I don't have an answer. But I use that so what in everything. Like, so what? So what if I make this investment and I lose a ton of money? So what? What happens? Oh, well, I get in a ton of trouble. And okay, so I probably shouldn't do that. So what if I let my kid stay up too late? And okay, well, he's going to be a mess tomorrow morning, but it's worth it because we're hanging out. Okay, all right, so I'm going to do it, right? Like, to me, the so what is like, it's always in my head, always. So what? So what? So what? What, like, so what's the worst that could happen? So what should I do? So what? Why should they buy from you? Like, ask yourself, so what, about every interaction, and take it one step further. And I think that is always really helpful in validating why you should not be doing something.
Also, I think when you're indecisive and you worry too much, or when we or anybody does that, that's great advice. It's like, just really think about it. Okay, so what is the worst case scenario? What could happen?
Yeah.
And also it speaks to just sometimes taking a risk and taking a leap of faith and doing stuff like you do. Just ask for it. Just ask for the job, man.
Yeah. Just ask. Love it. All they can say is no, and then you just keep going about your life.
I feel like you're going to write a book one day, Tiff, and it's going to be titled Just Ask.
Oh, maybe I will. Okay, great. Do you know, I feel like my horoscope, actually, Rebecca, funny enough, my horoscope for tomorrow, no joke, says that I should start. Okay, wait, now this is hilarious, but ready? It actually says, if you want to write a novel or begin another artistic endeavor, your muse may urge you to launch this now. Heed this call and get started.
Shut the front door. Yes.
There you go.
I would be honored to be your muse. There
you go. Be like dedicated to Rebecca and her Resilient Mind podcast.
Amazing. Oh, thank you so much. Okay. Can you tell anyone who wants to find out more about you, where can they find you?
Yeah, they can find me on LinkedIn at Tiffany Heimpel. They can find me.
Sorry, I'm interrupting you again, but Tiffany writes really great articles on LinkedIn. I haven't shared that, but I don't know, how frequently you write them, but the few times I've read them, they've been really insightful. And so I think people should definitely find you on LinkedIn. Sorry, I cut you off.
Thank you. No, I try, again, I was a blogger and an influencer for a long time, so I'm trying to get back to writing online again. But Tiffany Heimpel on LinkedIn, tiffanyheimpel.com, Tiffany Heimpel on Twitter, on Instagram, on all the things. And that's spelled Heimpel, Heimpel, like Heineken. Yeah.
Like Heineken. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, girl. I can't wait to read your book.
All right. Thanks, Rebecca.
Thanks.
Bye.
Okay, that's my friend Tiffany Heimpel, everybody. We did not mention this in the podcast, but if any of you follow me on Instagram, you'll know that, 10 months ago, I made a post saying I was going to launch a podcast with my friend. Well, that's the friend. We were going to have a podcast together, and then we just couldn't get our act together. It just seemed like so much coordination. We wanted to talk about being a mom. We were going to call it what was it? Barbies and boardrooms, or babies, but boardrooms and binkies, or I don't know. It was going to be fun. But the reality was it was just too much to coordinate between her busy life and mine. So I launched my own podcast. But if you loved this interview as much as I did, I can have her back again and again, and you can get all of her wisdom. That's it, guys. Thanks for tuning in again this week. Please remember to leave a review for me on, the place where you can put reviews. What would that be? Like iTunes, I guess, of the podcast? 5 stars is always welcome. And share with your friends. Don't forget to screenshot it, share it on social media, so we can raise awareness about all the beautiful business and design education happening here. That's it, and I'll see you next week.